Hey Techno Studs, your networks are prone to a lot of risk. So how do we manage that? Let's get into it in this video. In this video, what we're going to do is talk about a security program and what a security program is and what it does for us. Then we're going to talk about a security framework and what that is. We'll talk about risk management, and then we'll get into some specific strategies. So let's talk about a security program and the need for a security program. So my guess is if you were to go and ask people of a business, you would actually ask the employees, how likely are they to get hacked? How likely are they that their email is going to get hacked? How likely is that their password will be compromised? How likely is it that they will fall for a phishing technique? How likely is it that that employee will somebody will leverage them to get into the business and hack the business? And my guess is that almost 100% of people are going to say, no, that's not going to happen to me. That's unlikely to happen to me. That's unlikely. My password is secure enough, and I'm not going to fall for any phishing. Yet it happens all the time. And the thing is that we have different experiences and we have different positions. And so from a security program standpoint, I've got some people listed out here as part of a business here. We've got Hui that's been in sales for 5 years, and he's been selling products for 5 years. He's never got hacked before. And so perhaps what he feels like is he hasn't been hacked, and so he feels like he's in a comfortable position and that he's thinking of everything correctly. When in fact his password might be terrible. He just might have got lucky and not have been hacked yet. And then you have Rick over here who has some knowledge of security. He's a programmer, so he's security minded, but he has this silo and he just does security for this position. And so what my point is that your security is only good to the point that these people are educated to, and they don't know any better. And if you don't have a security program, you can never have consistency among these people that to know what standard that they need to be at. Another example that I have in here is there's a system, a process that's 15 years old, very outdated, and it outdates all of these people. And so maybe this system doesn't fall under anybody's umbrella. And it's a system that's out there and maybe has some security risk to it. Well, that is a problem. A security program identifies all of this, trains the people in what is the expectation. It does audits to make sure people are following through with what they need to be following through with. It captures these processes that are outside of other people's purview. And so a good security program is going to be taking a look at all of these different aspects and make sure that the whole company is coordinated with this. Let me put it another way. This is somebody's network, and this network has a wall built around it for security purposes. But there's all of these doors to get into it. These doors, these gates, what they are is their individual employees' accounts. And so these individuals will have a username and password to get into these gates. And so supposedly this network is secure, but it just takes one person to leave the door open, a bad password that they have, or they've left it written on a message, or somebody has gotten a hold of this password. And now it doesn't just expose this little area, but it exposes the whole network behind this. Once they're in there behind, they can see everything, and it exposes everything. So a good security program makes sure that everybody is up to speed and everybody understands that they need to have these gates closed, that they need to have good passwords, that they need to understand what phishing techniques are out there. They need to understand all of this. And even with a good security program, I test the employees at the company I'm working for. I test them on a regular basis. Every couple weeks, they get phishing messages in their inbox that's coming from a system that we manage. And it is testing them to see if they click on the links. And I have the same people that click on the same links over and over again. So you have to watch out for this from a security program standpoint. You have to be monitoring this. You have to be educating people. You have to be testing them. You have to have this full security program to really say that you are doing security. Because without it, you're all operating on these little different silos and operating at the experience that you have in the position that you have. And it's not a true security program unless you dedicate resources towards security. So what is a security program? Well, in its simplicity form, it's really just about setting policies. So you have policies which are expectations of how things are going to be. And you set those expectations, you make sure everybody agrees to those expectations so everybody's on the same page. Then you set procedures and processes, and you implement changes that people are going to follow to make sure that they are being secure. And then it also encompasses these things called controls. They are going to be something where you're going to set aside a measurable standard, and then you're going to hold people to those measurable standards. You're going to hold those processes to those measurable standards. And so a security program has to have these elements of policies, procedures, and controls to make sure that people are doing that they're educated on what they're supposed to be doing, and that they are in fact doing what they should be doing. Now, what should they be doing? What should you be doing? Well, you need some sort of security framework, something that outlines what this looks like. I look at it as a blueprint. It's kind of a blueprint. A security framework is a blueprint. And there's many different security frameworks out there. You would select a security framework, and then you would build your security program off of this security framework. So some examples of this would be the NIST 800-53, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, the COSO or the COBIT, or the ISO 2700. So there's different frameworks that are out there that can be utilized to start building this security program around. A good security program has risk management. Risk management is the process of taking and analyzing risk, figuring out what risks are going to be detrimental to the company, and figuring out how to mitigate those risks. So a couple areas that this can be done in is, first of all, the security risk assessment. So through a security risk assessment, you look at what threats are out there and what threats you should be worried about. You look at vulnerabilities. What systems do you have out there, and what vulnerabilities do those systems have? You conduct something called penetration testing. Penetration testing, or pen testing, is a third party that comes in and then starts testing out your network to see how they can penetrate it and where the vulnerabilities are and how they can leverage the different systems. And then there's also posture assessment, which analyzes your whole security platform, your whole security program, to make sure that it is at a level that needs to be for the size of business that you are. There's also some business risk assessment, so assessing processes to make sure processes, and there's no gaps in the processes of the businesses. And one of those is the vendor assessment as well. Make sure that the vendors are the appropriate vendors, and that there's not gaps with the agreements with the vendors and how the vendors operate. So there's some assessments that go into this to make sure that to analyze the risk and see what the risk level is within each one of these different components. Risk can actually be calculated. We can come up with a quantitative data for risk. And this is helpful so we can compare different risks and prioritize different risk. And so what I mean by that is risk is the probability times impact. And that's how we calculate it. Probability is a percent, and the impact is a dollar amount, or a monetary amount. And so let's give an example of, let's say there's the probability of a system, we have a certain particular system that we're analyzing, and the probability that it would get hacked in the current state is 10%. And if it got hacked, it would cost us $100,000 to fix, or maybe loss of productivity, or maybe loss of our reputation, or maybe there's some sort of impact like that. And so what the risk involved with this would be $10,000, 10% of 100,000. So that would be the risk level in a certain whatever's come out of the assessment. So we can actually put a calculated data, something that is solid information with this. And once again, this helps if we have a lot of different risks that we have, we can figure out the probability that each one of those would occur, figure out the impact that it would have on the business to calculate to see what would be the total loss of this, or what we figure the loss would be for this. And then we can prioritize based off of that. So with risk management, we assess the risk, we prioritize the risk, and then we take some sort of action against that risk. So what actions can we take against the risk? Well, there are a few different options that we have. Number one is we could avoid it. Maybe if we're rolling out this new system and we figured 10% that it's going to get hacked seems really high. That seems a little crazy to me. So perhaps we just don't roll out that system, and therefore we practice the avoidance of rolling out this system. Maybe we'd reduce the impact. Maybe we'd reduce the likelihood that it's going to get attacked and that it's going to get compromised. So we put extra security in front of it. So maybe some extra firewall security in front of it to make sure that it's extra secure. So we're reducing the chances of that happening. There is also, what we can do is we can transfer it. And what that means is maybe we go out and get insurance, or maybe we hire that component out to another agency. So we are going to transfer it to another agency by taking, like I say, maybe an example of that is an insurance policy out on whatever is that we're putting out there. Or maybe we take out some extra cybersecurity insurance or something to that effect. And then we can just accept the risks. There are times when we recognize, yes, this is a risk, probability is low, or the impact is low, or the reward is high by doing whatever that we're doing. And so we're just going to accept it. So these are some strategies to, when we discover risk, what are we going to do? Are we going to avoid it? Are we going to reduce the impact? Are we going to transfer it? Or are we going to accept it? There you go, risk management. So the first thing that we talked about is the security program and the need for a security program. It is so important because otherwise you just have people doing whatever they think is secure, and that is not a form of security at all. So we talked about different security frameworks, things that you can start building that foundation, build the security program off of that foundation. We talked about risk management and some strategies to manage that risk. Thanks again for watching my video. If you liked it, could you hit that like button?